Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, where you grew up? And
Yeah, sure. I'm from Albany, New York. I grew up in Albany. My parents came from the old country, from Sicily, and settled in Albany, and I went to school there, of course, when I graduated from Philip Schuyler High School and started taking piano lessons from the Albany Conservatory, and wanted to be a music teacher. And my father was a pastor of a Pentecostal church, an Italian Pentecostal church, and he wanted me to play the piano in church. And instead, I wanted to, play in a band or play some rock and roll. Anyway, when I graduated from school in high school in 1955, I went to school down south and got introduced to gospel music and played the piano for a gospel quartet. And the rest is pretty much history, because that's introduced me to the music that would finally introduce me to Elvis Presley. So that's it was a good thing for me. So.
Yeah, it certainly was. Yeah. Can you tell me, Joe, the first time that you met Elvis? I'm sure you remember it.
Oh, sure I do. It's in my book. I'm going to keep referring to my book because I'd like you to encourage your people to.
Oh, I certainly will.
Yeah, it's called The Gospel Side of Elvis. I wrote about a side of Elvis that not everybody really knows about, or it's been written about very much. But,
I agree.
Yeah, anyway, I met him at the National Quartet Convention every year in Memphis, Tennessee, back in the 50s and 60s. In Memphis, there was a quartet convention. All the quartets, the gospel quartets from all over the country would convene in Memphis, and it was hosted by the Blackwood Brothers, one of Elvis Presley's favorite groups, the group that sang at his mother's funeral. Anyway, I was there playing the piano for a quartet called the Harmoniers. I was just 21 years old, and we were on early that evening, about 8 o'clock, and, we were finished, and my guys wanted to leave and go back to the hotel, but I heard there was a rumor going around backstage that Elvis was going to visit backstage at the quartet convention because he was in town, and he loved the music, but he was also friends with the Blackwood Brothers and J.D. Sumner and a lot of the people in some of the groups. So I just couldn't, I couldn't pass it up. I thought I'd wait around until he arrived just so I could get a glimpse of him, I'd never met him before. So I hung around, and sure enough, about 11 o'clock that night, he comes in the backstage entrance and with an entourage, and of course everybody, gathers around him, and they want an autograph, they want to talk to him, they want to take a picture with him, and he was very, very cordial, very nice. And I saw my opening after about 15 minutes that I could go up to him. And I went up and introduced myself, said, Elvis, my name is Joe Moscheo. He said, oh, Joe Moscheo. He said, I know who you are. He said, you play the piano for the Harmoniers, don't you? Well, I was just floored that this guy would know who I was. I mean, I couldn't believe it. He said, yeah, I know who you are. He said, I listened to the Harmoniers records. He says, I'm a big fan, and he said, I know all the groups, and I know every person in the groups. I know their songs. I know their arrangements. He said, I'm a real student of this industry. He said, and I love all this music. He said, I know who you are. And so I said, well, I was just embarrassed. I mean, I couldn't believe I was taken back by it. Anyway, I said, well, I'd love to have an autograph. My mother is a big fan of yours, my whole family is, of course. And he said, well, I'll tell you what. He said, I'll give you my autograph if you give me yours.
There you go.
Gosh. It was just such an insight into this guy. I mean, that he would think enough to try to make me relax. He knew I was nervous in meeting him, and and he did everything he could to accommodate me, but also to make me feel important. And I never forgot it. And then a couple of years later, I'm working with the guy. It's was almost like it's a God thing. It was real chain of events in my life. So.
When did you start working for Elvis?
Well, we started in '67. We started working here in Nashville in the studios doing the How Great Thou Art album. RCA. It was one of his wanted a choir sound on the record, and so instead of hiring a choir, he got the Jordanaires and the Imperials, so that was 8 voices, and then he added a few female voices to it, and then they recorded us doing the backup, and then they would double it, so it sounded, there was twice as many, it was 2 times as many voices, once they doubled it on recording, and it sounded like a choir behind them, and if you listen to that album, you can tell. But it's the Imperials and the Jordanaires on that record. So
yeah, it's very full sounding, very beautiful.
Yeah, so that's the first time I met him, and then of course we opened in Vegas with him in '69. So
what a show that must have been.
Oh, it was incredible. Yeah, it was really. It's unbelievable. I don't think I made a comment in the book that there's not many of us left. There was probably 50 people total, maybe more, I don't know, but that worked on stage with him, that performed with him.
That's true.
That he shared his stage with, was Jordanaires, the Imperials, the Stamps, the Sweet Inspirations, a couple other singers in between, but, and the TCB band, and, it's not a lot of people, but just to have that honor and to be a part of that was just unspeakable, really, to feel when he walked out on stage, what a feeling it was to see the reaction of the people and the way he could come out and the charisma that he demanded from his audience. And it was just and it was not just a truck driver from Des Moines. There were a lot of celebrities in the audience. Yeah. Everybody was really in awe of Elvis. It was amazing the power that he had in his persona and in his work. He's one of a kind.
Mm-hmm. Joe, is there one story that there's my puppy. Joe, is there one story that sticks out in your mind, a story about Elvis, maybe a prankster story or anything?
A prankster story. There's I got a story about Elvis was very generous with us,
Mm-hmm.
He always gave us, when we worked with him at the end of the shows, if it was 2 weeks or a month in Vegas, whatever it was, he would give us some beautiful gifts. And a lot of times he would have them made, from his jeweler. They would be bracelets or watches or, whatever. But he was very, very generous, and it was always very expensive, a top quality, jewelry. But this one time he gave us a watch. And it was a Matty Tissot watch, French watch, and it had Elvis Presley around the bezel on top, and then it had 5 stars around the bottom. I think he only had about 75 of them made. He gave them to the guys in his immediate group, paid them out. Anyway, it was one of those self-winding watches. This was, of course, 30 years ago, it was terrific, it was good looking, it was big and bold, and but mine wouldn't run. I'd shake it and hit it on my hand and wear it all day long, but it wouldn't run. And so I kept it for a couple of days. Everybody else, didn't seem to have any trouble. So after the second day, I just walked across the hall from our dressing room. Our dressing rooms were across the hall from each other out there in Vegas. And I went in right before the first show and knocked on the door. And they said, "What do you?" I said, "I need to talk to Elvis for a minute." And he was in there getting dressed. They were getting him ready. I just stuck my head in the door. I said, "Elvis," I said, "man, these new watches are great." I said, "and I really appreciate it." But he said, mine just won't run." Without even, missing a beat, he said, "I just give them away. I don't fix them."
He had some quick wit, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, he did. He said, I just give them away. I don't fix them. Well, I was so embarrassed by that, I just shut the door and left, I never mentioned it again,
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, but, there are hundreds of those kinds of stories. He was quite a guy. He was, like I said, very generous, very thoughtful. And it was always a lot of fun to be around him when we weren't on stage. We spent a lot of time with him up in the suite singing gospel songs all the time. And it was great. It was a great relationship, a great once-in-a-lifetime kind of experience,
Yeah, so after you were done from downstairs, you went up to his suite. Your job wasn't really done until Elvis said it was done.
Well, yeah, I mean, he wasn't so demanding, but, I mean, he expected it, you know, he expected you. He'd say, you know, we knew that every night in the suite something was going on. He was going to have a bunch of people up there, a lot of celebrities, a lot of friends, and he always had good food there, and there was always, you know, something going, music, or somebody, his friends in the karate world would give a karate demonstration, but it didn't matter what really went on. There was a time when, you know, he at the right time, he'd make his way over to the piano and he'd motion. I'd slide in the piano and we'd take off on some gospel song and he'd sing with us, or else he'd call everybody and say, okay, now I want you to hear this Imperials. I want you to listen, so you all be quiet. You know, he'd tell everybody to quit dogging, draw attention to, and we'd sing Sweet Spirit, or He Touched Me, or whatever, one of his favorites that he wanted to hear. So, I mean, it was amazing that he was willing to expose gospel music to a whole different audience, a secular audience, and that he was willing to share his friends and his stage with us. It was really an amazing thing. I think that's what we appreciated most about him. You know?
Joe, was there ever talk about doing a gospel tour, or just one gospel show? Was there ever talk?
Not really. Toward the end, I think J.D. indicated, you know, to me, you know, we weren't there for the last 5 years. J.D. came in after us and the Stamps, and I think that, you know, toward the end, I think maybe they, you know, Elvis would have liked to have done it, but I don't know if he could ever convince the Colonel to do it. I don't know, you know, if the Colonel would ever promote him as a gospel singer, but I say in the book, I mean, the guy was the greatest gospel singer, and you know, maybe if he was alive today at 72, he'd be singing gospel music. Who knows? You know?
And he really did light up when he sang gospel. I mean, you could see it. You could see he drew strength from gospel.
Did you ever, that If I Can Dream is not exactly a gospel song, but it certainly is a song of inspiration. But when he, on that 68 special in the white suit, you know, if I can dream of a better world where men walk hand in hand. I mean, it's just a great song, and he sings it like a gospel singer. He milks it, you know. He sings it with such passion and such conviction. It's just really, really, it's probably my favorite performance and song that he does, yeah.
Would Elvis ever talk to you about faith?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, we talked a lot in a group setting, you know, where there were a lot of conversations about religion. I'm going to sneeze.
God bless you.
Excuse me.
God bless you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of discussions about religion. It was, you know, often very controversial. And there were, of course, in that kind of setting with a lot of different people from a lot of different beliefs were there. It wasn't a good idea because, you know, nothing could be agreed on or settled. But on a one-to-one, the only time that I had a one-to-one with him, I took him a Bible in Huntsville, Alabama. And I gave him a Bible. It was a living Bible, and it was toward the end, it was a year before he passed, and I just knew he was having a lot of problems. You know, he was having a lot of personal problems. He was having some inner circle problems with his guys and with the family stuff, and I just felt sorry for him. I know he was depressed. He was going through a lot of health issues, and I was praying for him, and I took him the Bible. I made a trip down to Huntsville from Nashville. I told the guys I wanted to see him. I went into his room and talked to him, just the two of us, and I gave him the Bible. And I said, I know you're looking around. I know you're confused and you're searching. But I said, all the answers you'll ever need are in this book. So I said, you know, just read this book. And it's a New Living Bible. It was a new paraphrased. It was so easy to understand, and I just encouraged him to read the Word. But I just think Elvis was totally confused. He had a lot of stuff going on, and he had a lot of distractions. And but I believe that you know, there's a verse that says, "Raise up a child in the way that he will go, and he'll never stray from it." You know, and I believe that you know, Elvis grew up in the church, and I believe he was a believer till the end. So I mean, that's what I want to believe. I want to believe positively. There's a lot of things that have been said, but that's yeah. So that's the whole emphasis of the book, you know, is that it's the gospel side. It's a real positive book, and I want people to remember him that way. You know.
I look forward to being able to review it for Elvis Express Radio. Hey, Joe, when was the last time you saw Elvis?
That was the last time in Huntsville. Yeah.
That was the last time. When did you hear, Joe, that Elvis had passed away?
Yeah, I was at work. I worked at a company called BMI, and I was at my desk, and a friend of mine from the newspaper, the evening newspaper, called me and said, Joe, it just came over the wire. He said that Elvis died. Oh, man, I panicked. I said, you got to know. You're kidding. So I called Priscilla, and she was just on her way to the airport to catch the private plane back to Memphis. Mm-hmm. She said, I'll be there in 4 hours. I said, well, it'll take me like 3 hours. And she said, well, I'll meet you in Memphis. And, and I drove down, and, I spent time down there, and, a lot of things were going on for the couple of days leading up to the funeral. Mm-hmm. It was so, yeah, it was unbelievable that this would happen to him, So.
A 42-year-old man, that's way too young for anyone to pass.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
He had so much, But I tell you what, though, for a man that passed 30 years ago, his legend and his influence are bigger than ever, Joe. I mean,
it's incredible.
We travel around the world now doing these. We just came from Germany. People love him. They still, they're still interested. They buy his music. They want to hear every story. I mean, it's like he only lived 42 years, but I would say that every day of his life is documented somehow. Mm-hmm. I mean, they want to know every day that he lived. What was he doing? What did he say? Where did he go? I mean, it's amazing, isn't it, the interest that he has?
They just want more and more and more of him.
Yeah, it is.
And it's like he never left us.
Yeah, it's great.
Now, where can people get your book, Joe?
Well, it's a big book. It's out the Hachette Book Company. It's a big book company. They bought Time Warner. It's going to be in all the bookstores. It's going to be it's on Amazon right now. You can queue up to it on Amazon. It's in all the bookstores. It's at Costco's and Sam's Club and Walmart's and wherever you can buy a book, it'll be there in a few days.
Okay, now you'll be there for Elvis Week, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, we're in Memphis that whole week, and I'm signing for 3 days. I'm doing some signings at the exhibit hall where all the Elvis people will be, and all the fans from all over the world, man. There's going to be a bunch of them there.
I wish I could be there.
Yeah, I wish you could, too. I hope to meet you someday, and I thank you for all your good work, and I wish you well, and God bless you, okay?
Yeah, and Joe, I want to thank you for doing this for Elvis Express Radio.
Okay, buddy. I appreciate it. I hope to talk to you again soon, okay?
Okay, bye-bye.